My family labeled him useless during dinner. His reaction got us all shaking. Hello, people. I am here mostly to reflect on what a blunder I did by letting my husband leave me. I could easily say that it was the worst mistake of my life. No, this does not involve me being unfaithful or him doing something horrible to me. There was nothing wrong in our relationship except the negativity growing inside me and the devil speaking to me and making me hate my husband. I am not sure if people will think of me as a gold digger at the end of this, but I want you guys to remember that I had been with my husband even when he had nothing. I was happy when I met him because he looked honest and made me laugh. I went on one date and decided that he was a guy I could spend the rest of my life with. My family was a little disappointed when I took him home and introduced him to them. He did not have a formal degree but was very intelligent and street smart. My family had doubts of how he would be able to cover all our expenses while living a decent life. I told my parents that they were overanalyzing this in their head. I had a decent job and earned well, so it would not be a problem for us to have helped each other and lead a peaceful life. I did not want to wait for my family to accept him and rushed into getting married after just 3 dates. My husband was more than happy to accept me even if my family gave him the cold shoulder. I told him to ignore my family as they are not bad people, just a little concerned for me. He said that he did not mind any judgment as long as I had faith in him. That's how our story began. It was all nice and smooth till my husband lost his job. Things became very different after that, and it seemed like my life would never be the same again. It felt like all these years that we were together was all fake, and now I get to see a new side of my husband who would sulk all the time. Nothing would make him happy or engaged until a few months ago, when he completely started devoting himself to his phone. I was done with his behavior and felt like a burden coming home to a house where I had no one to talk to. I had a family dinner to attend, which my husband was not very keen on attending, but I made it a point that it was important, and he was to come along even if he did not like it. My family had never liked my husband since the time I was dating him. They looked down upon him because he was not as educated as I was and earned way less than me. They did not understand why I even started dating him in the first place. Every time I went home, they would advise me to divorce him and get married to someone who was of my level. Initially, I would just ignore their comments as I was sure that they would get around and like him someday. I was fed up with my husband being lazy and just sitting at home instead of finding a decent job. I was tired of doing everything myself, all alone. I wondered if my family was right that he was just putting on a show all this while to prove them wrong. Losing his job had given him an excuse to just stay at home and relax, while I worked my ass off to provide for us. When I would ask him to do something, he would say that he was working on something on his phone. It made me think about what could probably be so important now that he did not even have a job to be working on, I was left with. We arrived at my parents' place, and all my family was already there waiting for us. We were late because my husband wanted to get a few snacks, and we made 3 pit stops for his specific flavor of chips. I was more than pissed, to say the least. I could see the judging eyes of my family silently telling me why I was with him, even after him being useless for more than 6 months. This was the first time I was agreeing with my family that they might have been right. I mean, if I was the one earning and doing all the chores at home, then why do I need a husband for? We were sitting and catching up with everyone when one of my sisters joked that I must be exhausted from doing all the work at home. I really need a good long break from making ends meet while my husband was just living off me. Everyone started laughing, and for the first time, I was not offended, but I laughed and agreed. I could see my husband looking at me in disbelief that I was not angry but laughing at him with my family. I could see him shift uncomfortably in his seat, but I did not try to go and comfort him. I made it very clear to him that I did not see anything wrong in what they were saying by my actions. It was time for dinner, and everyone was sitting with their partners. I decided to sit between my parents and across from my husband. I did not want to be anywhere near him and feel him sulking throughout the dinner. I was here to have a good time, and I was not going to let him ruin that. As we were eating, the bell rang, and one of my previous boyfriends was at the door, and I had no idea that he was also invited. My husband looked at me, and I could see him asking what the hell was happening. My parents shifted and made us both sit together. I could see how my husband was throwing angry glares at me. I chose to ignore him and focused on my ex and what he had been up to all this while. There were constant gasps and surprise from my family, being so supportive of my ex, telling him how they knew all along that he would achieve big things in life. They kept on sucking up to him, telling how they always liked him and felt like he was part of the family. I could hear grunts from my husband at how my family changed their demeanor once they met someone who they felt like was of the same level as them. He even chuckled at how my family was trying so hard to impress him. Suddenly, they asked how he would feel about dating me again. That was such an out-of-the-box question, and everyone froze for a second. All eyes were on my ex. Even my husband was waiting to hear his reply. He just laughed and tried to dodge it, saying how could he say anything when I was sitting here with my husband. They said that hypothetically, if I was single right now, then he would date me. I was a little embarrassed and curious to know what he would answer. I had a hunch that if he was here, I was sure that he might have been given some kind of idea as to what was going on in my life. He said that it would be his pleasure to be a part of my life again. I blushed at his words, and I could see my husband notice it, but I was enjoying it and did not try to hide my emotions. I had this high ground in my head that it was desirable even after living with him for 3 years. I started flirting with my ex and was provoking my husband. I knew that there was nothing he could do as he was surrounded by my family. They knew how to show him his place and put him there. I knew that this was my territory and I could do what I pleased without anyone stopping me. I took this opportunity and used it to my advantage. I asked my ex if he missed me and what was the thing that he missed the most. He winked at me and I understood what he meant by that. We both started laughing and I was literally inches apart from his face while laughing. We were holding each other's hand and cracking our inside jokes and laughing so hard. I decided that I was going to forget that my husband was around and just focus on my family and my ex. No one showed their objection to how inappropriate me and my ex were acting out in front of everyone. In fact, it looked like this was the exact reason why he was invited. As the dinner progressed, everyone, including my parents, started throwing accusations at my husband that he ruined my life. I was such a happy and bubbly person, and now all I cared about was expenses and house chores. He was selfish and hardly cared about me. Even now that he did not have a job, he helped very little with house chores and was always on the phone playing stupid games. They said that if he was not earning, the least he could do was help me with keeping the house clean and making meals. He was like a burden on me that was pushing me further down and slowing down my pace. I added that I felt trapped in this marriage, which I was very sure would be a happy one when I went against my family to get married to him. I would always go back to the conversations with my family, where they would tell me that I was making the wrong decision and ruining my life. I was in a place where I was somewhere agreeing to the fact that they might have been right all along. He finally stood up and said that he was not going to sit around and keep getting insulted by my family. He was here only because it mattered to me, but clearly I was also one of them. So he no longer needed to stay. Everyone started laughing, saying what could he do about it? All he has been doing was clinging on to me and being a parasite in my life. He angrily stomps his foot and prepares to leave. Someone screams that he drove in with me in my car, so he would have to walk back home, but wait, the home was also something that I had been paying for, so he had no place to go. My dad finally and firmly asked him to sit and not make a scene. It was clear that there was nothing he could do because everything they were saying was true. He said that he could get angry, but it would not change the fact that he had been useless for all this while. He added that the only reason they were putting up with him was because their daughter liked him, and now that even she was not sure about it, there was no need for them to be nice to him. I felt a relief wash over me. I was glad that I might not have to plan with breaking the news alone of wanting a divorce from my husband. I was feeling overwhelmed and tired. I could not see a future for us together, since I was the only one pushing the wheels of our relationship. I stood firmly beside my dad and said that I was done and needed to free myself from him and everything else that feels like a burden. I told him that I was meaning to tell him, but now that it was already being discussed, I might as well come clean and put it out there. He looked at me in disbelief that I might be joking, and any time I would just burst out laughing. He kept looking at me thinking that I was not serious, but I paused and did not say anything after breaking the news. I waited for his reaction as I knew that he would not take it in a good way. I was glad that I was surrounded by people who would support me. I added that lately I felt as if I was drowning myself in misery and being overworked. There was hardly anything with which he helped me and was always absent-minded. It did not look like he lost his job, but he lost himself in the process. He hardly showed any interest in conversation or helping me with chores. I was done with his drama and needed a break from all of this. He said that he agrees that he had not been 100% in our relationship after he lost his job. The first few weeks were a little difficult to adjust since he was lost about what he should be doing next. He continued that once he was able to get out of his denial that he had no work, he started working on other options that he could try to earn a living and not burden me with everything. He was even helping with house chores, although not consistent, but he was trying his best. He made sure that we had supplies at home ready to use, and everything else that I needed was readily available. He said that he was not wasting his time playing games, but was working on something serious. He was working on a game software, and he was getting investors and buyers who were willing to give him more than a few million for the copyrights, along with a 10% share in profits and shares. As and when he was earning money, he was also investing in Bitcoin and would be a billionaire soon. He wanted to buy a house and surprise me. He was very close to it as he was waiting for my birthday to move us into a new house. He knew that my family would try to fill my ears with negative things about him, but he was very sure that I had my trust in him and would not be swayed by their words. Unfortunately, he now understood that my faith and trust in him was not as strong as he thought. I was easily engrossed and looked at only the negative things in him. He said that he was very disappointed in me for having very little patience in knowing that things will only get better. He was surprised at how easily I had made up my mind that I would never get a job and be useless all my life, and quickly started looking for other options. He said that seeing my ex did make him a bit uncomfortable, but the way I acted showed a clear stand from my end. Once I started flirting with my ex. He made up his mind that he wanted nothing to do with me and my family. He was done trying to prove to everyone that he was worthy of being married to me. He said that even though he was tired and looking at how everyone was closing in on him, he was also done and wanted nothing to do with any of us. My family was still processing what he said about him earning millions. We were all shocked to have looked down on him all these years. I quickly apologized on the behalf of my family, but he said now that he knew our true colors, he would like to distance himself from all of us and our toxicity. We were trying to make things de-escalate and smoothen things out. My family suddenly flipped and started signing accolades in my husband's favor. My dad said that he always knew that my husband would keep his daughter happy, no matter what. My husband laughed and said that he needed air, as he was feeling stuffy in here with all these two-faced people around him. He left even when I was asking him to wait for me, and before I could make it out, he was gone. It has been a week since my family dinner. I went home alone but could not find my husband anywhere. His things were gone and he stopped taking my calls. I tried calling his friends to check if he was with any of them, but everyone said that they had no clue where he was. My family pushed me to mend things with him and get back together. They were literally pushing me to make things work between me and my husband, as he now was suddenly worthy. I found out where he lived and went to meet him at his new house. He let me in, and before we could even speak, he took me to a vanity room that he specifically had custom made for me. It had all kinds of clothes and shoes along with other accessories. I was surprised to see that he was not lying about hitting the jackpot, but was preparing to give me a surprise on my birthday. He asked me if I liked it. I had a ray of hope light in my heart that maybe he would forgive me and patch up things. I smiled and said that everything was perfect, just as I always wanted. He asked me to take whatever I needed since he had no use for these things. I looked at him confused, and he said that he did not want to get back with me, but I was free to pick up any stuff that I wanted and leave. This was the maximum that he could bear to be in the same room as me. I ran behind him and told him that he was more important than any of these things. I was even willing to leave my family who kept bad-mouthing him and corrupted my brain. I promised that he was the only person that mattered to me. Of course, now that I knew that the tables had turned so bad, there was nothing more I wanted more than to live with him. I mean, the house and everything in it was exactly how I dreamed my dream life to be. I would try hard to make sure that he forgives me and we get back together. He laughed and said that he was not going to fall for any of my sweet talks now. He could see through me and clearly the reason why I wanted to get back with him. He said that he had been very understanding and agreed to all my demands without any disagreements because he wanted me to be happy. Now that he knows how little I think of him, He did not desire to do things for my happiness anymore, even if he did not like them at times. I told him that he was getting it all wrong. I blamed everything on my family for pressuring me into thinking negatively about him and pushing me to get a divorce. I told him that since I was already in a bad headspace, I fell for their lies and started thinking like them. I told him that I never meant that he was below me, nor did I try to make him feel that way. In my head, I felt like I deserved all the good things after being together and suffering all this while. I was now at a place where it was my right to enjoy his success and engage in a luxurious life, even if it meant that I might have to beg him to take me back. I told him that he needs to remember that I was with him when he was nothing and had nothing. It was more like he was dumping me after he achieved success. It would show him in a bad light to dump his wife after being together all this while. He said that he did not mind what people thought about him, unlike me, and I guess that was the reason why he was with me, even when everyone was against it. I am now exhausted after the big trial that took place. The verdict was very clear that I did not deserve to be with my husband. I was a little disappointed by the jury and judges for dismissing all the hard work I put in this relationship when things were difficult. My appeal to everyone was that I had been with him all this while and did not expect anything in return. I was very sure that at least that would work in my favor. There were no grounds on which they could rule the verdict in his favor. My husband then produced a recording from my family dinner, where the jury could clearly hear my family disrespecting him and me flirting with my ex. I had no clue when and how he recorded all of this and suddenly produced it as evidence. He just said that he wanted peace in his life, while me and my family were pushing him towards depression. I could see a glimpse of a smirk when my husband was leaving after the divorce was finalized. He whispered to me while passing across me, "Good riddance from you and your toxic family." I was shocked that he even made that remark. I knew that he hated my family, but I was shocked to see that he even called me toxic, putting us all in the same bracket. I now stay with my family, who keeps pushing me to try and mend things with my husband, even though we are divorced. I keep reminding them that he has now moved on, and no effort I make is going to get him to forgive me and take me back. I said that getting my ex-boyfriend was a cruel move by all of us. Maybe if we did not push him to such an extreme, he would have been able to forgive me and get back together. I miss him more than ever now. I can clearly see why my husband did not like my family, and how their priorities keep changing based on a person's financial status. I was regretting listening to them and deciding to leave my husband. I had a happy life with him, and now I was stuck in a job. I hated a family that used me as a toy and no mental peace. I missed how happy and peaceful my life was when I lived with him. This has been by far the biggest mistake of my life. I regret every waking minute of my life. Thank you everyone who has been with me so far. I don't feel any shame in saying that I ruined my life with my own 2 hands. My 2 cents to anyone who is feeling like they are stuck or going through a bad phase in their relationship would be to give it some time. Everything will fall in its rightful place when the time comes. You don't have to listen to people and drown yourself in negativity like I did. If there is one thing you could take away from my story, then that would be the one and only thing. Thank you for taking your time, and at the end, I just want to add, please make mindful choices in your life and stay happy.